So, Dennis Spurling uses race hustler rhetoric? Coming right up. What's up, y'all? Welcome back to Common Sense, Logic, and Reason. And as always, I want to say thank y'all for joining me today. So as y'all know, if you watch my videos for any length of time, you know that I have a series called Race Hustler Rhetoric. And basically, Race Hustler Rhetoric, I tell you what it is and I give you a specific example. Essentially, it's just pretty much the only excuses that black people have to say that America's a racist nation, a racist society. And I expose people to it so that way, if you ever run into it, you can always shut it down. Once the race hustler rhetoric is shut down and is no longer viable, blacks have no means of crying about racism and white supremacy or being victims in America. And that's just what it is. Now, it's one thing to give you specific examples, but it's another thing to give you an example of it actually being used. And I often say that you can have two black men, that black man could be homeless, and we'll say nobody's holding them and nobody's stopping them. And you can have the other black person could be a millionaire and they'll be crying about racism and white supremacy to the cows come home, even though that black person more than likely have had help from white people along the way to become a millionaire. And that seems to be the case over and over again. Now, Dennis Spurling is one of those gentlemen. I agree with him probably most of the time, but no two people are going to agree 100% on anything. I'm a huge fan of his, but he does a lot of race hustling, and I completely disagree with the race hustling. Now, he used a specific example of race hustle, so we're going to go into the video.
It's made by people. This is the FBI stats from 2019. It's close enough. It's pretty accurate as to what's going on. I want all my Filipino people to look. Where are my Filipino? Where are my foreign folks at? These are the FBI crime stats, the Federal Bureau of Investigation under the United States Department of Justice. It's the crime stats from 2019 in the United States. Now, this guy is telling you that 14% of the black population commits 56% of the violent crimes. Well, let's just take a look. Okay, so by race, white people, this is the number of white people arrested. That is nearly 5 million. Okay, and these are the various crimes in which they committed, right? So out of black people, 1,818,000. So who commits more crime? Who's arrested for more crimes off top? Let's just look at that. I want y'all to look at all my Filipino friends here. These are the type of misstatements that black people have to deal with because, we don't control our own systems. We don't have the TV and whatnot. Look who's winning. You understand? Look at this. Who does more crime here, right? Just look at that. It's white people. That's why they got arrested more.
Okay, here he brought up the fact that black people in America are responsible for 56% of all violent crime. Is usually teetering between 56, 55 in that range. But basically, black people are responsible for the majority of violent crime in America. So he tries to downplay it by comparing that to total crime. He brought up the total crime committed by white people, which was 4,729,290 total crimes, whereas black people, the number was 1,815,144. Again, that's an apples and oranges comparison because you can't really compare two different categories like that. The FBI tracks 31 different categories, one of those being violent crime, and of course, one being total crime committed. So you can't compare total crimes to just violent crime. But it is true that white people commit more total crime, but blacks still commit more violent crime, despite only being 13% of the population. Now, white people outnumber us 5-1. But that means that if the crime rates were the same, then white people should commit roughly 5 times as much crime as black people do. But if you actually calculate the numbers, It's not the case. White people outnumber us 5-1, but they commit only 2.6 times as many crimes, which means that black people are committing crime at a far higher rate. I mean, that's just facts. Now, if you really truly want to get an accurate comparison, then if you were to take the crimes committed by black people and multiply it by 5 times, then you get an accurate number on just how much crime that black people commit relative to the percentage population. But, and also the white column, it also includes, 3/4 of all Hispanics are considered white, and thus is lumped under the white column. So that's another dynamic that you have to add to that. So when people make that argument like this, they're being intellectually dishonest, and he's being intellectually dishonest here, making that flawed argument, that flawed comparison.
They're the ones doing most of the crime. That's why you got damn near 5 million of them to get arrested. Yeah, black people commit crimes too. But the other thing you got to understand is a lot of times when black people commit crimes, they're wrongfully convicted. They're wrongfully arrested. And we're going to talk about that a little later on too. Matter of fact, I posted up something for you all to see. And let's go through a couple of stats right now, just so we can go ahead and get this thing underway. This was a study done in Michigan, okay? This is what black people have to deal with. White guys, old racist white guys, not all white guys, not all white men. I'm just talking about the ones I'm talking about, all right? I want you guys to understand, what these are. This is another aspect of why black men are saying, we're getting the hell out of here. You just can't get a fair shake in the United States. So here's murder, all right? Judging from exonerations, right? Because he's talking about violent crime. Judging from exonerations, innocent black people are about 7 times more likely to be convicted of murder than innocent white people. In other words, an innocent black person is more likely to get convicted. Why is that? The reason is because the jury is typically white. The judge is white. The district attorney is white. And so when they see a black person, they see all these negative stereotypes along with that black person. They do not leave their racism at the courthouse door. And that's unfortunate. They say justice is blind, but it's not. Okay? The major cause of the high number of black murder exonerations, and for those people who don't know, exonerations means we found out that we made a mistake in the court system. He's been exonerated. He's free. The major cause of the high number of murder exonerations is the high homicide rate in the black community, a tragedy that kills many African Americans and sends many others to prison. Innocent defendants who are falsely convicted and exonerated do not contribute to this high homicide rate. They, like the families of victims are killed, are deeply harmed by murders committed by others.
Okay, now here he's talking about wrongfully convicted of murder. Of course, now he focused only on murder, not just wrongfully convicted of all crimes in general, but just wrongfully convicted of murder. Now, according to the numbers he cites, that black people are 7 times more likely to be wrongfully convicted of murder than white people. Of course, he left out the fact that black people commit also more total murders than white people. Matter of fact, black people commit more total murders than all other people, the whole rest of the population combined. But as I've also said about end result thinking, and this is just end result thinking, focusing on the end result without worrying about how and why we got there, is end result thinking is not the evidence. The evidence is how we got there, because any end result can exist for numerous reasons. But what black people often tend to do is take the end results that's unfavorable to black people and then automatically assume it's because of white supremacy. But there's no evidence that black people are 7 times more likely to be convicted or wrongfully convicted of murder because of white supremacy. There's various other reasons why this could be. Again, number one, black people commit more total crime, more total murder. So if you're committing more murders and you usually do this clustered in high crime areas, the chances of a person being convicted of something like that is going to go up the more you commit it. And also, black people are more reliant on public defenders than white people are, 5 times more likely. So we know, we've heard the stories about how, public defenders, oftentimes when you're dealing in urban areas, high crime areas, and high poverty areas in which people are far more likely to be reliant on the public defenders and they're committing mass crime. But then the public defenders have they have they just often end up with a backlog of cases that they try to get to, and they're more focused on getting clearance rather than defending the person. They can't, number one, can't defend the person to the full extent of the law because they just don't have the time to do so. Number two, they're paid by the government, so most cases they probably don't care regardless. They're not paid by the people who they represent. They're being paid by the state, so they really don't care if they represent or they win or not, because their money's not tied into winning cases. So there are many cases out here in which you have a lot of people who are wrongfully convicted of something because they had poor representation from the district attorneys. Public defenders. That black people, oftentimes we put ourselves in that situation by committing high crime and high murder clustered in small areas. This is not a result of white supremacy or no white people, no white judges and the white people and the jurors wanted to throw the black man under the bus. It's mostly black people's behavior. He has absolutely no evidence of this. Again, this is just brainwashing that so many black people face that these white folks are just out to get you. But that's nonsense, what he said here. Again, more intellectual dishonesty.
Here's what I want you all to understand. They push a bunch of people, a bunch of poor people in a community that's real small. They deprive it of anything. They don't give them good schooling. They don't have good resources. They don't have jobs. They over police them. They fill it with drugs and guns. And then they go in there and arrest people who commit crimes. And the police will go in and harass people. So yeah, if you're stuck in a ghetto full of other angry, hungry people who are not satisfied with life and no way of escaping, and they're constantly dealing with this harsh environment, and most black people live in urban areas for the most part, this is the crime that they're talking about. Well, damn, yeah.
Okay, this right here is just straight bullshit what he's talking about. Okay, the condition that black people are in are a result of what black people do. Nobody puts nobody into anything. There's no condition that black people are in America today that we as black people did not do to ourselves. We talk about the origin of all the problems of the hood, and this is where everything pretty much exists. The real problems in the black community exist in the hoods, and it's caused by black females. Again, black females, because of the 60s, the sexual revolution, they follow the feminists. They want to be sexually liberated. They basically did what they wanted to do. They started, instead of listening to the tradition of women getting with good men and started families, they started chasing what they wanted. They started chasing the Boogies and Ray Rays, who've always been on the corner. They've always been those dudes hanging on the corner with the swag. Women were shamed away from that. In all societies, women have been shamed away from that. Well, the black women chose not to be shamed, so they started messing with these dudes. And I always say, when you play with snakes, you get bit. You lie with dogs, you get fleas. You mess with Boogies and Ray Rays, you get single mother. And that's what they did. And they just started to cluster in the housing projects, being taken care of. They had no responsibility. And they started raising these children in these clustering these areas without fathers. That right there is the cause of the downfall of the black community. And so these people aren't being deprived of a damn thing. They are depriving themselves with their behaviors and the victimhood mentality. So nobody's depriving anybody. As far as the schooling, also schooling is a product of the people. Most of these schools they're talking about, that these poor performing schools at one point in time used to be decent schools, but because of the mentality of the people, these women raising these badass kids and sending these badass kids to school, and then now the badass kids are the problem, not the schools. So these schools, in most cases though, and it kills me that in most cases, these urban areas, black people are running everything. Black people tend to be the government, the mayors, city council, the school board, black people are the ones who are in charge of this, but yet you're still blaming the white man for it. Again, there's no condition that black people are in America that we as black people didn't put ourselves in. I don't hear nobody no damn segregation and Jim Crow. None of that has any impact whatsoever upon all of the flaws amongst black people in America today, the failure in the black community. This is a result of us and what we did, and mostly what black women did, leaving the covering of good men and leaving the covering of tradition. So again, you wouldn't expect this level of intellectual dishonesty from someone who's a lawyer who knows the law. Honestly, I would expect better. But then again, this is a perfect example of how black people are brainwashed in America. He's been a victim of the black brainwashing, believing that there's white supremacy. But the white supremacy didn't stop him from becoming a very successful lawyer. But anyway, using end result thinking as the evidence, is it as intellectually dishonest as it gets? End result thinking is not the proof. It is not telling us, all it's telling us what it is, but it doesn't tell us how we got there. And how we got there is what's important, because the end result could be for various reasons. I always talk about, end result thinking, the black folks get more time for saying crime. Well, black folks commit crime at a far higher rate than any other people. So black people are much more likely to stand before a judge, and much more likely to stand before a judge with a longer criminal arrest record. So black people getting more time for the same crime is not a result of white supremacy, it's black people's behavior. And this is how easily people can use numbers to lie. Now, like I said, I would love to see more from black people, but this racist rhetoric is just nothing but victimhood, and it needs to end. That's why I make these videos on racist rhetoric. So when you run into them, if you listen to my videos, there's no rhetoric that any black person or white person or anybody can bring forward and tell you that America is a racist nation and a racist society with all this systemic racism, with all the evidence saying otherwise. But anyway, y'all, that's my 2 cents on this. I'm accusing him of being very intellectually dishonest in these ridiculous arguments that he's making that are easily debunked, as you see. But anyway, y'all, as always, until next time.